भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकीम्। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 15 and text 30. So that's what this is. The name of the chapter is Pandavas Retire Timely. Today we are reading text 30. I'll read the verse purport. Geetam Bhagavata Gnanam Yattat Sangramamurdhani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punar Adhyagamat Prabhu. Read it once again. Geetam Bhagavata Gnanam Yattat Sangramamurdhani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punar Adhyagamat Prabhu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Because of Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses. A conditioned soul is enwrapped in his fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. But the Supreme Lord, when he incarnates on the earth, is not influenced by Kala or the material conception of past, present, and future. The activities of the Lord are eternal, and they are manifestations of his Atma Maya or internal potency. All pastimes or activities of the Lord are spiritual in nature, but to the layman, they appear to be on the same level with material activities. It so appeared that Arjuna and the Lord were engaged in the battle of Kurukshetra as the other party was also engaged. But factually, the Lord was executing his mission of incarnation and association with his eternal friend Arjuna. Therefore, such apparently material activities of Arjuna did not drive him away from his transcendental position, but on the contrary, revived his consciousness of the songs of the Lord as he sang them personally. This revival of consciousness is assured by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Bhagavad Gita 1865. One should think of the Lord always. The mind should not forget him. One should become a devotee of the Lord and offer obeisances unto him. One who lives in that fashion becomes undoubtedly endowed with the blessing of the Lord by achieving the shelter of his lotus feet. There is nothing to doubt about this eternal truth. Because Arjuna was his confidential friend, the secret was disclosed to him. Arjuna had no desire to fight with his relatives, but he fought for the mission of the Lord. He was always engaged in the execution of his mission only, and therefore, after the Lord's departure, he remained in the same transcendental position, even though it appeared that he forgot all the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord, and by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. This is the highest perfection of life. I'm reading the last sentence once again. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. And by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. This is the perfection of life. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalaam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Saturday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. This chapter has been, many devotees have been discussing beautifully about this chapter. That Pandavas are going to retire now from their activities because they understood that Lord Krishna had already left this planet and went back to the spiritual world. So in the beginning part of this chapter, we have seen how Arjuna was like grief-stricken and he was unable to speak, just like how he was confused in the beginning of Battle of Kurukshetra. He appeared to be confused in the same way. We see similar characteristics Arjuna was displaying, that he was unable to talk. He was his voice choked and all these things. Of course, this is in a different mood. This is in relation to a different situation. Arjuna was behaving like this, and this is actually very much very emotional situation, spiritually emotional situation, where Arjuna was feeling the separation from the Lord, and out of his separation, he was remembering all the different activities that Lord Krishna performed in relation to them, and he was trying to find some solace in those activities. He was also narrating all these things to Yudhishthir Maharaj, and we saw how Yudhishthir Maharaj was also expecting something inauspicious to happen by looking at so many different omens in the previous chapter. And in this chapter, Arjuna is bringing this news of Krishna's departure, and seemingly he is so overwhelmed by this thought, and Yudhishthir Maharaj also was very much disturbed by this. Now, starting from verse 27, see that is where Sutta Goswami starts speaking again. So it appears that Arjuna is again trying to become sober. He's trying to become composed and focusing on what should be my duty. This is what he is trying to do. So as a part of that section, he is speaking this verse. Because of Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became the lord of his senses. So this is very interesting, that when a loved one leaves us, is it wrong to become sad? Is it wrong to express our sorrow? Are we supposed to be like stones? Are we supposed to be like emotionless? If someone near and dear one dies, we say, everything is happening because of Kala. That is that a right thing? Become very indifferent to the situation. very emotionless, and consider that this is all. I mean, we actually become very hard-hearted. So that is not the case. Devotees also feel the sorrow and grief of losing another devotee's association. But then, as we always hear, the activities of a normal karmi and a person who is in the devotional service or trying to become a devotee of the Lord, they may appear very, very similar, but then the consciousness in which they are doing, that is different. Just like a person who is not interested in any spiritual life, who is atheistic, who is against the principles given by Supreme Lord, he works so hard in the material world to make money, to take care of his family, and to raise their children, and whatnot. So many other things, so many things and many times they appear to be extremely responsible also, right? It's not that they are irresponsible because they are atheistic. No, they are many times very, very responsible towards their family, children, and all that, and it's a fact. Similarly, we see devotees also struggling so hard, morning to evening. They work so hard to earn money for the family, and raise their children, and everything appears to be very similar, right? But then um, the consciousness in which they do these activities is completely different. At least it is supposed to be different, right? Otherwise, there is no difference between a devotee and a Muda, Prabhupada calls. So there is no difference actually. The consciousness in which we perform activities are supposed to be totally different. Although we are working hard, we should understand, the connection between that work and Krishna. We should understand the connection between the results of the activity and Krishna. And we should understand how we can offer the results as well as the activity itself for the service of the Supreme Lord. So that is where the consciousness of a devotee becomes totally different, and that is when that activity, which is seemingly very ordinary, becomes an offering to the Supreme Lord, right? And Bhagavatam very clearly says in the beginning, in the second chapter itself, it says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayajitaha Janatyasu Vairagyam. Not this verse. There is Atapumbi Dvijasreshta Varnashrama Vivagasha Swanushtitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. So the purpose of performing any activity is to please the Supreme Lord, Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. And if that is not fulfilled, then Shamaya Veh Kevalam. It's simply useless labor. So that's what Bhagavatam says. So Bhagavatam is not, the Bhagavata culture or the Vedic culture is not asking us to stop acting or becoming emotionless. You actually act for the pleasure of the Lord, and that is perfection of life. So we can see, I just started this discussion with saying, are the devotees supposed to be emotionless? No, it's not like that. Just like a karmi or an ordinary person who has no information about Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, he becomes sad when he sees his relatives or near and dear ones leaving this world. Similarly, a devotee also becomes sad because devotee also is a human being. He is in human dress actually, right? So he becomes not only human beings, any living entity we take in this world, they're generally animals and such things, those who have slightly higher consciousness, they all feel sorrow when a near and dear one leaves. But then what should be the consciousness of a devotee while feeling that sorrow, right? So that is it is not something that we can we have to say, we have to decide saying that this Prabhu, you become, your sorrow, sorry, you are actually crying now, but cry in a proper consciousness. Because at the time when we go through these emotions, it's very difficult to actually be composed. So but then there is an underlying principle which can help us guide our emotions properly, even when we are faced with such difficult situations where some near and dear one leaves. So I was hearing this from my Guru Maharaj in one of the lectures. He mentions that a devotee also feels sorrow when somebody leaves the world. But the reason he says is that the reason a devotee becomes sorrow becomes sad when he sees some other devotee leaving this world, is not because of his attachment to the body of the devotee. Of course, that is there, and the reason, I mean, why when the body leaves, what is that? What does it mean? How does a devotee look at it? He understands that this soul which left me mm, uh, to the other destination, he is actually part and parcel of Krishna, and everything happens in this world by the power of time, which is manifestation of Krishna. So just like we go from one destination to another destination, so the soul also travels from one destination to another destination in his onward journey towards Krishna, right? But then we do not have, being bound in this body, we do not have a capacity to directly connect with the soul, right? So we are actually limited by this body. So because of which we can only perceive another devotee when he also takes another body, right? A human body. That is when we can perceive them, right? So the body, in that sense, body and even the subtle body actually act as a medium through which we can connect to the soul, right? So that is why when the devotee leaves this world, when any devotee leaves this world, we actually become sad that he has left his body. Why? Because the body of a devotee itself is very sacred, and because he has been using that body to serve the Lord, and he has been, through that body and mind, he is giving his association to all of us. And because that person left this world, we feel a deep sorrow. Why? Because now we lost an opportunity to connect with the soul. As I said, because we are limited by our body, we cannot connect to any soul in its original form without it accepting a body, right? So that is why the devotee's body is also sacred. And when a devotee leaves this world, our our understanding, or the underlying principle of our uh, separation should be this. Now I lost an opportunity to associate with this wonderful soul. uh, of course, the soul is going to the next destination. Nobody can stop that. And when we go away also, no one can make any adjustment. No one can make any replacement. But still, uh, there will be somebody else who will be crying for us or praying for us, hopefully. So that should be the mood. Here, Arjuna is feeling separation from the Lord. Of course, here we see the slight difference. It's a big difference actually. When a devotee leaves this world, how other devotees feel, and Arjuna feeling separation from the Lord. He is actually thinking like, my dear friend has left me alone in this world, and he has gone to the spiritual world, to his um, original place. So Arjuna's emotions also carry a lot of meaning. It's not that he is simply crying for, oh, I lost this, I lost that. No, it is in relationship with Krishna, and that is why it becomes spiritual. If it is not in relationship with Krishna, then the story is different, right? But then Arjuna is uh, uh, remembering all these pastimes, and everything is Krishna's pastimes. So in any form or mode, we remember Krishna, that is actually spiritual, right? So um, so that is what I wanted to speak a little bit on. He actually, but factually this was not the case, and again he became lord of his senses. So that means he's coming back to his so now the emotion part is over. Now he is trying to fix himself in, what should I do now. Uh, so that's why he's becoming, that's why it is mentioned here, he became the lord of his senses. That doesn't mean like, I become emotionless, now I become indifferent to that Krishna leaving this planet, or a devotee leaving this planet, I become indifferent. Now I don't have anything to do with. No, this is very, very kind of impersonal, very mayavadi conception actually. Devotee is very having, devotee is not a person who has no emotions. Rather, he has a very fine-tuned emotion, because what do we do when we go back to spiritual world? It's just exchange of so many spiritual emotions, right? So many emotions. Their devotee is constantly trying to understand, what pleases the other devotee or the Supreme Lord, right? And that has so much to do with the science of emotions, actually, right? I mean, that phrase appears to be not making any sense, that, the science of emotions, but then that is what it is, right? So acharyas like Rupa Goswami are expert at describing that science of emotion, science of love. And just like we see in the books like Nectar of Devotion, we see that it is a book which explains the science of emotions, science of love, right? So Arjuna actually came back to his senses. Now he is focusing on his duty. What should I do now? So this is how a devotee actually acts also. There may be so many miseries, so many pains inflicted upon us just because of being part of this material world. But then he understands that, okay, these are all there. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Syam Stitikshasva Bharata. These are going to happen. Whether we like it or not, they are there. And we need to tolerate them and act according to our duties, act according to our responsibilities. So Prabhupada begins this purport with a very interesting statement. A conditioned soul is enwrapped in his fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. Right? This discussion on time appears in various places of Srimad Bhagavatam. It appears in a very special way in the first canto, actually, at many places. We hear about, this verse spoken by Bhishma Dev. He says, Sarvam Kala Kritam Manye, everything is happening in this world by the force of time. And we hear it many places. This is one more place, actually. Conditioned soul is enwrapped in his fruitive activities by the force of eternal time. So we are trying to live in this world. Of course, we are all under the influence of time, because of which we experience past, present, and future. If we were not under the influence of time, then there is no question of past, present, and future. Everything is present only, right? So, but then a conditioned soul, when he enters into the womb of material nature, so as soon as he comes into this consciousness, then his clock starts ticking, right? That's how the time factor is, right? It starts imposing a condition upon the living entity, that you are going to go through so many phases of life, right? So unfortunately, we become absorbed in all these activities, which are like which are under the influence of time. So we can understand that in the material world, time is the supreme. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita also, Kalosmi Lokakshekaram. So Krishna manifests in this material world in the form of time, right? So in the spiritual world, time is absent and Krishna is present, right? Time is conspicuous by its absence, Prabhupada says that, right? And in the material world, we see Krishna taking the form of time. And slowly things are happening. We can't even observe. And things are moving at such a, we can say it is a slow pace or a fast pace, but at a pace where we don't observe. And within few years, we see that I was a small child. Just it appears like I went to my college, and I had my teenage and all that just yesterday, and today it is already gone. And this becomes a memory. I mean, the present situation becomes a memory when we go to the future, right? When we turn 50, 60, at that time, we feel like just yesterday I was, I was very young, going out with children and all that. It is gone now. Now my end has come. So this condition is because of the influence of time on the living entity. The condition is put upon us that you have a beginning and you have an end. So that's what time does to us. But in fact, we do not have any beginning and end, right? We are eternal. We do not only realize that. That's the problem. We do not have a realization of that. Now we see that this material body actually undergoes 6 different changes. And taking from birth, then there is growth, then there is production of byproducts, and we have maintenance phase, and then dwindling, and then death, right? The dwindling and death happen very, very quickly, even before we realize. Actually, it just comes and goes. Birth and growth, we don't realize that the time is passing, right? Children keep complaining sometimes, oh, why I'm still very young. As a child, I was also complaining, why am I so young? I should grow up. And because I see, like, every grown up is enjoying a lot. There is so much fun for elders, and they keep telling the children, hey, this is not for you, this is only for elders, right? That actually gives a curiosity. Why don't I become elder, overnight, and then I can do everything what others are doing? But then that is again a conditioning. So taking birth itself, I was hearing a devotee yesterday. He was asking a very interesting question. He said, what is birth? We all celebrate birthdays and all that, right? So he was saying that, body is always dead and soul is unborn. So what is birthday actually? So, body is always dead. Uh, and the soul never takes birth, actually. Soul is eternal. Then what are we celebrating in the name of birthday? He says that, it is only a celebration of our misconception of identifying with our own body, right? So that is his definition of birthday. So we keep we keep cherishing the old memories on the day of our birth, thinking that, okay, I took birth in a so and so place, I was in so and so family, I spent nice childhood, then then I grew up, and things are happening. So this is actually, just because we are thinking in terms of past, present, and future. In other words, it's nothing but the influence of time. And we develop a certain attachment to our own body. Body is nothing but a bunch of chemicals. From the shastric point of view, this is nothing but pancha mahabhut, right? So, and that is coming from um, another set of Panchamahabhut, right? So it comes from the body of the mother, and we develop this body, and this body gives birth to another body. But just because of this connection of having, like, from my body comes another body, I develop a lot of attachment to that body, right? And that is also happening under the influence of time and the three modes of nature. We don't have the same attachment to everyone in the world, right? We only have attachment to our own offsprings, or from whom we came, right? And that is actually because of being so attached to this particular set of five elements. Actually, the same five elements is there everywhere, right? Like we see earth, water, fire, air, ether everywhere. But then we become attached to only this set of five elements. And when this is gone, we feel like, oh, I lost shelter. So that is all happening because of our conditioned nature, because we are put in a particular situation, and and we think this is reality, right? So then, just like birth is there, then the growth is there, then there is all other phases of life. While passing through these phases, what we develop, if we don't have the right knowledge, or if devotees had not come into our life to give this knowledge, we would be developing a deeper attachment to this body. And that's why at the point of death, when we are saying, sir, time up, your contract is over, you have to leave this place, no extension on the contract anymore, your deadline is over. That's why it is called deadline, I guess. So we can't go to the next phase with the same body, right? So we need to leave this and uh, um, just go to the next destination, right? So at that time, we feel a deep attachment to this set of five elements and think that, oh no, I'm losing myself. So that is a crisis, actually. So here, in this verse, actually, we see that Arjuna becoming composed because of his remembrance of the instructions of the Lord, right? So that is very significant here. So the Lord also comes into this world and leaves the world, but his coming and leaving is totally different. It's not like, like our coming and leaving. Why? Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. Krishna's birth and activities are so different from any ordinary living entity's birth and activities, that just by understanding the secret of Krishna's birth, how he appears in this world, he doesn't just, he's not pushed or forced by the kala or the time factor. He just appears in this world, and he just leaves this world out of his own sweet will. And when a person knows this secret, then it is sure that he doesn't take birth in this world again. That's what Krishna promises, actually. That means we can understand how special is Krishna's appearance and disappearance. So in fact, there is in an absolute sense, it's just like, Krishna appears in this world, he performs some activities, and he actually gives his association to his eternal associates like Arjuna and others, and then he winds up these activities and goes to another place to perform different pastimes, colorful pastimes, just to attract the minds of all the living entities there. Today, I try to name this topic depending on, based on the last statement of Srila Prabhupada. That's why I repeated that statement again. That is being steadfastness in spiritual life through sambandha jnana, actually. So that's what we see in this particular section, that Arjuna actually becomes composed by remembering the instructions of the Lord. We can see, of course, Prabhupada also writes here in the middle of the purport, this revival of consciousness is assured by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita as manmana bhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishya satyam te pratijane priyosime. One should think of Lord always. Prabhupada is rephrasing this, paraphrasing this. The mind should not forget him. One should become a devotee of the Lord and offer obeisances unto him. One who lives in that fashion becomes undoubtedly endowed with the blessing of the Lord by achieving the shelter of his lotus feet. There is no doubt about this eternal truth. Because Arjuna was his confidential friend, the secret was disclosed to him. So, and towards the end, I'm reading this once again. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. And by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. That is perfection of life. So basically, we see that we have some, because of having this material body, we always are under the illusion that we have some connection to this world, right? This material body actually acts as a medium of that connection, right? That is why we feel sambandha here. We feel a relationship everywhere. Like, he is my wife, she is my wife, they are my children, that is my parents. There are so many connections which come because of being in this body, right? So, but then our eternal connection, our eternal sambandha is with Krishna. It is there with all other living entities also, because every living entity is also part and parcel of Krishna. But this connection is dependent on our connection with Krishna, right? It's just like if you take a tree, we hear this example in Srimad Bhagavatam that, yathataror mula nishechanena tupyanti yat skanda bhujopashaka. You water the root of the tree, then the whole tree will be nourished. That's what we hear. Now, if you see, what is the relationship between two leaves on the tree? One is on the left branch and the other is on the right branch. What is the relationship? Are they related? They appear to be like so far away from each other, and appear to be not related at all if we just see these branches separately, right? Separately from the tree. But then we try to trace back the roots of the leaves, then they both have the same roots. They are coming from the same roots. So in that way, the leaves are connected, actually. The branches are connected, the twigs are connected with each other. Maybe we don't see the connection one-on-one, but we see because of their connection to the root. Similarly, a living entity also has a connection with all other living entities in this world, in the material world as well as the spiritual world, because of his connection with Krishna. Krishna is the root of the creation, whether it is material creation or spiritual creation. He is the root of creation. And through that route, we are connected to every living entity. Illusion is something when we forget that connection and think that we have connection with only one small set of people because of the relationship between these pancha mahabhut, right? So because I come from a particular body of my mother, I become related to her, and then I produce some more offsprings, I become related to them. So this is a very narrow understanding of our relationship with others, actually. Why? Because it is just what to say, it is just bound to the connection between these pancha mahabhut, whereas connection with Krishna is much more broader, actually, because every living entity, every part of this material creation, whether it is uh, dead or living, everything is originally connected to Krishna. And looking at this relationship with Krishna actually gives us a sense of responsibility, a sense of duty. It changes, it shifts our consciousness to a whole different paradigm. Why is it so? Because now we started looking our connection or realizing our connection with Krishna, then we start acting on that connection, right? We start realizing that, okay, the other things are not very important, correct? So that's how it is. So when we actually try to develop sambandha with the Lord, that is when we actually start slackening our sambandha with the material world, right? And that sambandha, in one sense, is quite difficult to develop because we are all kind of patients with amnesia. Now, amnesia is a disease when we start forgetting things, right? We forgot our last relationship with God. We even forgot that we are related to the Lord, right? We are thinking that, okay, the small branch is mine. The different leaves which are on this branch, they are all related to me. This is my family, or this is my nation, this is my country. The small, very small group of relationships. Whereas we are trying to say that, okay, in that branch is yours only, even that branch is related to you. Ultimately, you are all related because you are all connected to the same root. But then this is broad-mindedness. Krishna uses the word udaradi in Bhagavad Gita. But then there is sankuchita bhava, narrow-mindedness. Narrow-mindedness means only we see very small set of relationships and understand, okay, these are all mine. Yeah, you may have some responsibility towards them because of connection through the body, but then that is not the our eternal relationship, actually. Our eternal relationship is with Krishna, because of which we have relationship with all other living entities also. So that means, because of being in this material world, we will have two levels of responsibilities. One is because we are related to different bodies through the pancha mahabhut relationship, and then there is something which is higher, which is much higher, actually, because we are all connected to Krishna, right? So the duties we may have to perform according to whatever position we are in, but then we should understand, we should be performing them in a very detached fashion, because we understand these are all going to, because this pancha mahabhut is going to mix with the bigger set of pancha mahabhut at one point or the other, right? So that's eventual. Nobody can stop that. But then our relationship with the root is going to remain forever. So we need to do something for that also. In fact, we need to invest our consciousness in that more than our relationship with the material world. So, as I mentioned, it's for a conditioned living entity to understand that, okay, this whole family is there, this is my family, but then I have a bigger family. To consider this is very difficult, right? People may try to expand their consciousness, right? Like, for example, a very selfish person may think about only about himself, right? A little more advanced person, advanced in his consciousness, he thinks, okay, more than me are my offsprings or my parents, or who are related to my body, right? And sometimes he does so much sacrifice just to please them, right? He goes out of his way to please them. And sometimes this consciousness expands to a little bigger level, where he starts thinking that it's not just my family, I have to take care of my community. Then even expanded consciousness is to think that I have to take care of my nation. In this material world, it can go up to vasudhaiva kutumbakam, right? This whole world is vasudha eva kutumbakam. This is all one family. A person who is thinking at the level of nation, considering, okay, this nation is my nation and the other one is somebody else's, my enemy's nation. So he's thinking like, it's something like I'm sitting on this branch of the tree as a leaf and think that this other branch is bad, right? Because we don't see the common connection to the root. So that sambandha to the original root is missing, and that's why we can't see the relationship between this branch and the other branch. So if we have to revive our original consciousness, then we start working on this, reviving our sambandha with the root. That is very important, and that will bring a very stable platform for us, because that is an eternal platform. There is no change on that platform. All other relationships we see, these relationships are more or less like, they constantly change, they evolve, they change, like as I said, growth, birth, growth, and all these phases, it changes, and at one point there is a hard stop. We can't extend it anymore. We can't say, okay, I'll purchase another prepaid plan. No, not possible. Unfortunately, right? So it's important for us to act in relationship with our eternal sambandha, and that actually brings steadfastness in our spiritual life, because we are acting on a platform which is eternal. Now maybe I'll take another 5 or 7 minutes before I close for and open up for discussion. um, um, the point which I wanted to mention is that, okay, if we want to develop this sambandha, or be situated in the relationship with the eternal, then there are certain things which we need to do. Because as I mentioned, I stopped the discussion some time back. As I mentioned, we are all like patients with amnesia. Amnesia is a disease where we forget things, right? Now we forgot the eternal relationship with God. So in movies, we used to, I used to watch in some of the movies, like a person, he is going in a car with one of his, let's say girlfriend or wife or family or whoever is going on the mountain, and he reaches the cliff, and the car suddenly loses control, falls off the cliff. Miraculously, he is still alive, but then he goes and hits somewhere, and he just loses all his memory, and he's like he forgot all his relationships. And one of his, after he's admitted into hospital, somebody comes, some of his relatives, friends, they come in front of him, and he's unable to recognize. He's saying, thinking, who are all these people? I have never seen him, because of his accident. So what does the doctor say? He says, okay, give him or put him in a situation where he had a great emotional exchange with some of you in the past, right? Or show him things which are very close to his heart. Maybe he will remember his past, because of being in that connection, right? Then the mother brings something and says, you see this picture, this is what you were like in your childhood. You remember we went to this park, or you remember we went to this waterfalls, or so many things they keep trying to give us. And slowly, at least in movies they show that, slowly he regains his memory. So for us also, if we have to regain our lost sambandha with the Lord, we have to act in a particular way, and that is what is given in the Shastra as Abhideya. The Sambandha Lord is Radha Madan Mohan, where he attracts us, right? But then, if we want to be fixed in that Sambandha, we need to actually nourish it with our service to the Lord. So Radha Govinda is the deity of Abhideya, where Govinda is a giver of pleasure to our senses, cows, and Mother Earth, right? You all know that. So when we perform devotional service to the Lord, by chanting his holy names, or discussing Krishna Katha, engaging in service activities of missionary activities, and all these things actually give us a sense of connection with Krishna. Just by thinking that, okay, I have a relationship, it is not going to help us. That won't turn our knowledge into realization. But when we engage in service, that is when we see that, okay, this relationship is very tangible. It's tangible. It is something which we can feel. It is something which we can connect to, right? That connection comes when we start serving, especially when a devotee in his matured consciousness starts serving very selflessly. That is when he actually develops a deep relationship with the Lord. Otherwise, if it is not selfless, if it is selfish, then that also comes to an end after some time, right? Because he's acting for something else other than Krishna, correct? So that is why we all need to practice this being selfless in our service to the Lord, to the Lord and the devotees of the Lord. Because of this selfless service, we develop our lost connection. We regain our lost connection with Krishna. Because that is what we are aiming at. With the service, we are aiming at pleasing Krishna. Service is a medium which helps us build our connection with Krishna, right? So that is Abhideya. Radha Govinda is the deity, Abhideya deity. Rupa Goswami is the principal Acharya. And then by acting on this platform on a conscious way, putting our conscious endeavors and efforts to please the Lord, to please the devotees, without having any selfish motivation or agenda. Now, one day we will be by the mercy of the Lord will take us and gives us the prayojana. The prayojana is the love of Godhead. At that time, we will realize that, this prayojana is same as what I have been doing, all these days, but I never realized it. Right? That is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says that the means and the end both are same in this journey of devotional service. So here Arjuna is trying to become composed based on the Gita Bhagavata, the Gita Bhagavata. That's what is mentioned, that he's just trying to remember the instructions of the Lord. We can see that. I don't know if I can share that once again. But then, yeah, the translation actually says, because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses. So he gained his composure. Now he is going to act, right? He's going to act in connection with his relationship with Krishna, right? In connection to his relationship with Krishna. It's not that he's going to act whimsically. Why? Because he has a deep connection. He has already developed a deep relationship with the Lord. So whatever act he is going to do now, he's going to perform now, is also going to be in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada, again, the interesting statement is, so that is actually the perfection of life. When we are able to act in the consciousness of the Lord, then every activity becomes devotional service. We don't have to be become very kind of thinking like, okay, only when I chant I be devotee. After that, nobody knows what I am. No, that is not a right way of doing it. Our sincere chanting should result in transforming every other activity of us throughout the day into devotional service. Right? So that's the goal of it, and that is what is called activities in pace, activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. So at that time, we naturally become detached from those activities which are not helping us in progressing in our Krishna consciousness journey, and we naturally become attached to those which will help us, right? Take us closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is how a devotee naturally goes back to Godhead. It's a very organic way of, we cannot demand Krishna, I am chanting, you should appear in my heart. No, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen only when Krishna is pleased with our chanting. And when will he be pleased? That is also mentioned, right? So this is how I am pleased. Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. That is how Krishna is pleased. We cannot force Krishna, saying that, Krishna, I am chanting for 20 years now without any break, so you should appear in my heart. No, not going to happen, because Krishna is not bound by anything, right? So Krishna is only bound by our love. So when we know that, so it is something like we know the secret of Krishna, that how to uh, build this relationship, sweet relationship with Krishna. And at that time, Krishna doesn't leave us at any point. Like we see a Pandavas, whenever there was a difficulty, Krishna was there in their life. Why was it? Because they had the deep relationship with Krishna, right? And so even if a devotee doesn't think of Krishna, because of circumstances, Krishna is present there. And that's what we see in many, we hear from many acharyas and even current spiritual masters. They say that, at the time of death, even if you are not able to remember Krishna, if you are throughout your life, if you are constantly endeavoring to please Krishna, then Krishna makes sure that he is there. He is there at the time of our death, and there to assure us and take us back home, back to Godhead. Right? So that's what I have understood from this particular verse. I would like to stop here. If anyone has any questions or comments, I don't know if I can answer any questions, but that's beyond my capacity. But if you have any comments or discussion, please go ahead. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Dandavat pranams, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thanks for the wonderful lecture. I just have one doubt. Initially, you were talking about, emotions and especially that people carry after, death of a loved one or a close devotee. So usually there's a period of grief, right, that people go through. So is it because of the karma baggage that the person carries, or is it because the soul that departed was still very much attached to the to the material world and their the people that they were involved with?
Are you asking about the grief that a person undergoes when his or her beloved ones leave this world? Is it because of karma or something else? Is that correct, Prabhu?
Yeah, right. So because some people grieve for like months, some people grieve for like year or two, so it varies, right? And so is it because of the person, that's going through the grief, his or her karma, or is it because the soul that departed was too much attached to the material world when they departed, right?
Yeah. So it all depends on how matured is the consciousness of that person, Prabhu. Because technically, according to Rupa Goswami, as soon as a devotee, a person starts practicing devotional service, then there is no karma, right? So we cannot say that for a devotee this is karma, but then Krishna uses that karma also, which is the previous baggage which is there for the purification of the devotee. So it depends on how a devotee reacts to the situation, Prabhu, like how, in what consciousness he is in. Like grief is there for everyone. Like anyway, anytime our loved ones leave this world, we always feel sad. And if you don't feel sad, there is something wrong with us. Right? So we feel sad, we grieve actually because of that loss. But then what is causing our grief depends on how we related ourselves with that person. If we are related only on the platform of body, then that grief is pure material actually, right? If we related with that person, understanding that he's a part and parcel of Krishna, just like I am part and parcel of Krishna, then that is a different story, right? So if we, especially when a great soul leaves this world, so in one sense that is a moment of joy. Why? Because we understand that this soul is actually going back home, back to Godhead for sure, right? And and if it is any other like sadhaka devotee, that is also in one sense good, because he is going to his next destination, which is given by Krishna, right? So that's the whole point, Prabhu. Like, as long as we don't see our connection with Krishna to any of the situation or the activity that we are doing or the situation we are going through or any relationship, then it becomes material. And that material relationship only brings so much of pain and misery and so many other things. So if we have to put it in simple terms, in material world, any activity which is either apparently miserable or happy, both are ultimately miserable. But in spiritual life or in spiritual world, any activity or situation or anything else, which can be apparently miserable or happy, both of them are happy ending, right? So that's how it is, Prabhu. I hope I answered your question without confusing you so much.
No, Prabhu. Great.
Not yet.
Yeah, good. Good answers. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. So if there are no other comments, maybe we can close this here. Lingaraji Prabhu.
Prabhu, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakturanga ki jai. Panchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.